Russian President Vladimir Putin has declared that Moscow was suspending its participation in the New START Treaty, the last remaining nuclear arms control pact with the United States. Speaking in his State of the Nation address, Mr. Putin also said that Russia should stand ready to resume nuclear weapons tests if the U.S. does so, a move that would end a global ban on nuclear weapons tests in place since Cold War times. In the midst of tensions with Washington over the conflict in Ukraine, this move will further strain the relationship. Mr. Putin rationalized his choice to suspend Russia's commitments under New START by accusing the U.S. and NATO allies of openly stating their objective to defeat Russia in Ukraine. He stated, "They want to inflict a strategic defeat on us and try to get to our nuclear facilities at the same time. In this context, I have to declare today that Russia is suspending its participation in the treaty on strategic offensive arms." In this video, Defense Updates analyzes what are the implications of the crumbling New START Treaty. Let's get into the details. In 2010, the New START Treaty was signed by then-Presidents Barack Obama and Dmitry Medvedev with the purpose of averting a nuclear war. This agreement imposes restrictions on the number of strategic nuclear warheads that both nations are permitted to deploy and grants each country the authority to conduct inspections on the other. The arrangement came into force in 2011 and was extended 10 years later, although weapons inspections were disrupted by the COVID pandemic. Each side's limit is 1,550 long-range nuclear warheads, a lower number than under the previous START deal. Between them, the two former Cold War rivals account for almost 90% of the world's nuclear weapons. Despite the hostile rhetoric on both sides during the Ukraine war, Russia had previously expressed its desire to maintain the treaty's operation. Mr. Putin argued that the U.S. has been advocating for the resumption of inspections of Russian nuclear facilities under the treaty, while NATO allies have assisted Ukraine in launching drone attacks on Russian air bases that house nuclear-capable strategic bombers. The Russian military said that it shot down the Soviet-built drones that struck two bomber bases deep inside Russia in December, but acknowledged that several servicemen were killed by debris that also damaged some aircraft. Mr. Putin on Tuesday mocked NATO's statement, urging Russia to allow the resumption of the U.S. inspections of Russian nuclear weapon sites as some kind of theater of the absurd. The drones used for it were equipped and modernized with NATO's expert assistance, Mr. Putin said, and now they want to inspect our defense facilities? In the conditions of today's confrontation, it sounds like sheer nonsense. He said that a week ago he signed an order to deploy new land-based strategic missiles and asked, are they also going to poke their noses there? The Russian leader also noted that NATO's statement on New START raises the issue of the nuclear weapons of Britain and France that are part of the alliance's nuclear capability but aren't included in the U.S.-Russian pact. He stated in this context, "They're also aimed against us, they're aimed against Russia. Before we return to discussing the treaty, we need to understand what are the aspirations of NATO members Britain and France and how we take into account their strategic arsenals that are part of the alliance's combined strike potential." Mr. Putin emphasized that Russia is suspending its involvement in New START and not entirely withdrawing from the pact yet. President Biden said Wednesday that it is a big mistake for Russia to suspend its participation in the New START nuclear arms control pact. United States Secretary of State provided more detailed comments on this. The announcement by Russia that it's suspending participation in New START is deeply unfortunate and irresponsible. We'll be watching carefully to see what Russia actually does. We'll, of course, make sure that in any event, we're postured appropriately for the security of our own country and that of our allies. When the administration started, we extended New START because it was clearly in the security interests of our country and actually in the security interests of Russia. And that only underscores what an irresponsible action this is. But of course, we remain ready to talk about strategic arms limitations at any time with Russia, irrespective of anything else going on in the world or in our relationship. I think it matters that we continue to act responsibly in this area. It's also something the rest of the world expects of us. But this decision, as I said, is both really unfortunate and really irresponsible. But we'll be watching it closely. It's important to note that the Trump administration called the treaty deeply flawed, in part because it addresses only strategic nuclear weapons, long-range ones that can be used to threaten each other's territory, and not shorter-range, so-called tactical weapons. Russia's tactical arsenal is much greater than that of the U.S. There are even some aides of Biden who have expressed concern on record that the New START treaty does not encompass nuclear weapons with short and medium-range capabilities. Over the last few years, the situation between the U.S. and Russia has gone from bad to worse. New START is not the only arms control treaty that's no longer active. The INF Treaty, which was signed by Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev in 1987, that eliminated around 2,700 nuclear and conventional missiles, as well as their ground-based launchers, expired in 2019, as both the U.S. and Russia have withdrawn. There's a concern around the world, and rightly so, since no one wants a nuclear confrontation. Asked about the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres' reaction to Russian President Vladimir Putin's announcement that his country will suspend its participation in the New START nuclear arms reduction treaty, Guterres' spokesman, Stefan Dujarric, said that the Secretary General's position is that the U.S. and Russia should resume the full implementation of the treaty without delay. It remains to be seen if the two countries can find a middle ground and bring the situation under control, which is fast deteriorating.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this. Hit the like button if you find the video interesting, and kindly provide your feedback in the comment section. This will help us improve.